Welcome to part 8. I left you with Pinhead calling me. Pinhead had called me and said, hey, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me up at where you make phone calls? Well, real quickly, while I was in the holler, my cell phone wouldn't work. Now, the landline would work just fine, but the cell phone wouldn't work. And Pinhead knew that there was a spot up on the mountain where I could actually get high enough to where I could get a cell signal with that phone, and he knew where that spot was at. He said, can you meet me up there about 8 o'clock tonight? And I said, yeah. I said, I'll meet you up there. It seemed kind of strange, but I hung up the phone, and I thought to myself, it probably wasn't the brightest move on my part, but I was curious to know what it was all about. So I packed my Glock 40 cal and I put my my 357 in my saddlebags on my four-wheeler, and I went up to rendezvous with Pinhead, see what he was up to. I didn't know if it was an ambush. I mean, I had no clue what it was all about. But I get up there, and he's waiting for me. It's just him. So we're sitting up on this bench, which is a flat spot up on the mountain. And I said, what's up? And he said, hey, goes, I didn't want to talk to you on the phone. He said, but I got some news for you. And I said, well, I'm listening. He said, that cop has been taken care of. And that, it was really weird. You'd almost have to see it to know what I was talking about. But when he said that cop's been taken care of, but his whole demeanor changed to a totally different Pinhead that I'd never seen before. He said, but the phone calls have to stop, in a very threatening way, which he had never, ever came across to me like he was threatening. Now, the funny thing about Pinhead is that he's about as scrawny as they come. To describe him a little bit, real scrawny. His nose, at some point in his past, somebody had taken their fist and moved his nose in that direction. It was either in that direction or that direction. He's a real squirrely bastard. Kind of a likable bastard, but a squirrely bastard. But no way physically intimidating. Now, a bit of a nut job, don't get me wrong, and a pillhead. By this point, I know that he dabbles in selling narcotic pain pills, but he's a champion narcotic pain pill taker. So I don't know, I mean, it was just weird how he would come at me like that, all of a sudden change with that, the phone calls have to stop. And what he meant by that was the phone calls to Frankfort, Kentucky, to Internal Affairs, or anybody in that, bringing heat in that direction. I think a lot of people by this point, a lot of the bystanders that were also in the dope growing and dope peddling industry, were all really starting to get nervous that I was going to bring a lot of spotlights in their direction, which is something that they just were not interested in. How Pinhead knew that Charles Garland had been taken care of at that point, I can only speculate. I know that his daughter worked in one courthouse and his sister worked in another courthouse, so it's possible that they had heard something or they had connections. I know that Pinhead's father hung out with, or had been known to hang out with the Bell County Sheriff. Apparently they were buddies. So I don't know. But he had told me that cop, and he met Charles Garland, had been taken care of, but the phone calls had to stop. And I said to Pinhead, I said, look, my intentions were never to have this big war on drugs going on. It was never meant to be that. I said, things got out of control, but in all honesty, it was the Lamberts that snowballed everything with, Charles Garland and all that crap. And he said, I understand that, but the phone calls have to stop. I said, if you're telling me I can get, if I can get my timber out of here, I said, cool. I don't need to call anybody at this point. I just want to get my timber out. And that was the end of the conversation. He said he had to go, which was fine with me. It was just a weird situation. I just didn't put Pinhead in the position of that kind of knowledge or that kind of, to be to have that going on. I just never put him. I always kind of put him as a real bit player in the whole thing. But he came across as somebody that almost a Godfather-esque. I don't know. It was weird. But Pinhead went on his squirrely little way, and I went home. I called my logger and told him. He said, "Well, let's try to get some gravel tomorrow and see what happens." Well, we got the gravel. The gravel came. Super Trooper's car wasn't down there anymore. Hadn't been there. Well, actually, we noticed about 2 days into getting gravel on the road that we didn't see Charles Garland, and he had been living in that house, but his car was nowhere to be found. Kind of interesting because we didn't know what was going on. But we were graveling our haul road to get the timber out of that holler, which is all we cared about at that point. And I guess it probably took us 4 or 5 days to get the road right, to get the timber out. And that happened, and it was kind of like the day of truth. We were actually going to load up a truckload of timber and send it to the sawmill. And the timber got sent to the sawmill. No stops, no tickets, no nothing. And no Charles Garland. Very, very strange. Well, one of the drivers, I shouldn't say one of the drivers, but the driver at that time was talking to one of the guys at a place called Forest Products. It's a sawmill in Corbin, Kentucky. And apparently one of the guys he talked to actually went to church with a DOT guy, or DOT cop, the vehicle enforcement cop, and had said that Charles Garland had been called into the captain's office and yelled at so loudly that they could hear it all through the station, and was told that if he wanted to weigh trucks, that he could do it at the weigh station in London, Kentucky. So basically, and he was told not, in no uncertain terms, not to ever mess with another truck coming into my holler. So I was happy to hear that. So something went down. I don't know what, but obviously Charles Garland had been yanked off of us in a big way. But then it gets really, really, really interesting. I'm not sure where I'm at here. I'm going to stop this here. But when I come back, somebody's going to be dead. So come back for the next installment and see who's dead.